This is a CBC News Special presentation.
In the brutality of war, a remarkable sight.
In Holland, we are liberators and friends.
Canadian soldiers cheered by the Dutch as they freed city after starving city from the Nazis' grip. It was the end of the Second World War. The Netherlands was finally liberated.
How good to see you. You too.
80 years later, a dwindling number of people remember that fight firsthand, but the friendship rooted in it endures. It blooms each spring in Ottawa and is carefully tended in war cemeteries across the Netherlands. And today, on the sacred grounds where those who paid the price of freedom with their lives now lay, that Canadian courage is honored once more. This is the Groesbeek Canadian War Cemetery in the Netherlands, where in about an hour, a commemoration ceremony to mark the 80th anniversary of the liberation of the Netherlands will begin. This is where more than 2,300 Canadians, including 60 Indigenous soldiers killed in the Second World War, are laid to rest. Typically, this is a silent place, save for the mourning birds, and it's a beautiful space to remember those who were killed in the horror of war. Thank you for being with us here. I'm Adrienne Arsenault. Here in the Netherlands, acts of remembrance are absolutely active. Across this country, there will be many events this weekend marking the surrender of Nazi Germany 80 years ago, and specifically the courage of the Canadian soldiers who aided in the liberation. That courage cemented a deep and enduring bond between Canada and the Netherlands. So I'm joined here all morning by Tim Cook, the chief historian at the Canadian War Museum. So Tim, you joined us for our coverage of the 80th anniversary of the D-Day landings. That moment nearly 81 years ago now led directly to what we're marking here today. And I'm so curious what's on your mind this morning.
Yeah, that D-Day, 6th of June, 1944, Canadians coming ashore, fighting with their British and American allies. And that's something I hope most Canadians know about and are proud of. But 11 months later, after months of brutal fighting and terrible casualties, the war ends around here. VE Day soon, in a couple of days, to mark the 80th anniversary. And so here we are at this powerful place surrounded by Canadians, I think, to mark those fallen Canadians here, 2,300 of them, as you said. Canadians who never had a chance to grow up and to enjoy the country that you and I have inherited. And so it's a place of pride, it's a place of sorrow, and it's a place of history.
You can feel all of it. You know, today's ceremony, Tim, is a collaboration between Canada's government and the Faces to Graves Foundation. This is an organization that tries to tell the stories and share the pictures of the soldiers who died liberating this land. At many of the graves behind us here are photographs of the men as they were, young and proud. That is the work of the Faces to Graves Foundation. Now, over the course of today, we can expect to hear music from throat singing to bagpipes, as well as remarks from the ambassador, local mayors, a veteran, and of course, a full remembrance ceremony. Nearly 24 veterans have traveled to be here. So these veterans range, as you can imagine, from their late 90s to 105 years old. And Melissa and Jared, the team I work with here, we were lucky enough to travel with the veterans this week as they flew overnight from Canada and received a hero's welcome here in the place where they're known simply as the Liberators. Are you ready for this? Yes.
Now?
Now you are?
It's a pleasure to have you on board.
I'll check out your flying.
Matthew,
Yeah.
thank you for your service.
How you doing, sir?
Okay.
Do you want both my hands?
Yeah.
There you go.
Give me a hug. You made it. We made it.
You know you deserve every hug you get.
I don't. Are you okay? I don't know if I deserve it, but I'm just happy we did it.
We are honored to have a delegation of 21 Canadian Second World War veterans on board. This remarkable group is traveling to the Netherlands to take part in the celebrations marking the 80th anniversary of the liberation of the Netherlands. as many as 175,000 Canadians took part. We are eternally grateful for your service to our country.
Oh, I'm so proud to come back.
Can I give you all?
Oh, yes.
That veteran, Tim, is George Moreau. George was my seatmate on the plane. I was beside him, and on the other side of George was an Afghan vet named Kent Griffiths. And those men held hands basically throughout the bulk of the flight. George alternately crying as he did there, talking about how happy he was to come back, but then also crying, talking about the kids. And if I may, through the flight, he kept going like this. And I said, like, where are you? Like, what's happening? And he said that the Dutch were so weak, from hunger, that they couldn't speak. But when they would see the patches on the Canadian soldiers, they would just stroke their arms. And the whole plane was in a flood of tears often. But I'm curious about this connection between the generations of vets. Are you starting to see more of that? Are there more Afghan vets, for example, working with these soldiers?
Yeah, we do see that at the Canadian War Museum, and I think it's incredible. I mean, think 1.1 million Canadians served in uniform during the Second World War. Most of them beat the odds to survive. 45,000 did not, but you had a chance to talk to one of a few thousand left. But we have other veterans in this country, don't we? Korean War veterans, Cold War veterans, those who served NATO, NORAD, peacekeeping missions, and Afghanistan. And I think there's a continuity there between the veterans of the past and those of today, the men and women. And as I have often found, and I'm sure you saw this, it's not easy to talk about these experiences. And we need to create a space for veterans to do that. But I have seen that sometimes veterans can talk about the things to each other that they cannot tell us about. And so I think maybe that's an important link there through the generations.
Soldier to soldier.
Yes.
So you're going to hear from many people this morning, reporters both here with us in the Netherlands and some back in Canada, on the importance of acts of remembrance. So to begin, why don't we head out to Crystal Gumansi?
So, Adrienne, thank you so much. Yeah, there are so many beautiful moments and beautiful stories. And right now, I want to introduce you to Sandy Vincent. Sandy Vincent is an Inuk cultural artist. She made her way here from Nunavut. Thank you so much for joining us, Sandy. We have some music going on. You are a performer. I noticed you watching the bagpipes. You will be doing some throat singing, but I want to get your initial impressions. It's my first time at this cemetery, yours as well. When you first walked in, how did you feel? What were you thinking?
When I was first walking up, it was beautiful. I could tell there was so much care and respect here for this place. And as I was walking up, I almost got overwhelmed. It's beautiful.
It is such a beautiful location. You are one of the performers. We're listening to some bagpipes. You drum, you sing, you dance, but you're going to be doing throat singing for us today. What does it mean for you to bring your culture, your skills to this ceremony?
I'm very glad and feel special to be able to help celebrate and recognize the contributions of Indigenous liberators. 80 years of freedom is certainly something to celebrate.
Is it at all emotional? How are you dealing with all of this? Because we hear the bagpipes, we're looking at the faces of soldiers, we're looking at the faces of the veterans who have made it here, including some Indigenous veterans as well. Are you nervous? Are you just excited? What is it for you? Because you've been doing this for years and years, but a little bit of extra the nerves?
Yeah, as I look at the portraits on the headstones, I realize these were all people with families and hopes and dreams, and I feel just very special to be a part of this.
And we're very excited that you took some time to come and talk with us here at CBC. Thank you for that. Really appreciate it. And I know your family and your kids are excited to watch you, so they will no doubt be very proud of your performance today. Sandy Vincent, thank you so much. Thank you. Sandy Vincent there is an Inuk cultural artist. She's just one of the many individuals who'll be performing today. And Adrienne, you heard her talking about that moment when you walk into this ceremony in Groesbeek, and just how it takes your breath away, and you look at the gravestones and you look at the photos and you just realize the sacrifice of so many Canadians and exactly what it means, because you're walking around the towns and villages that are free because of their actions.
Crystal, thank you very much, and thanks to Sandy as well. While they were speaking, you were listening there to the Kelowna Pipers, and we're just, the ceremony itself, it is still about 40 minutes away, but every now and then we will stop and take a moment and have a listen if we can. This story that we're telling of Canada and the Netherlands, this shared bond that you've continued to hear about and will continue to hear about, begins more than 80 years ago. So if we can set the scene, Canadian soldiers were exhausted, but they were triumphant after the brutal fighting on D-Day and the Battle of Normandy. And ever the tip of the spear, those soldiers received new orders to liberate yet another country under Germany's thumb.
It's late 1944. Some 120,000 German troops hold the Netherlands. The initial operation to break that grip, strike into Germany and end the war, fails. The Allies are left reeling. The Canadians are tasked with a grueling campaign in the Netherlands' southwest, the Scheldt Estuary. They're called upon to clear the enemy-occupied positions leading to Antwerp, a key port needed to supply Allied armies fighting against a tenacious enemy. The Canadians suffered great casualties, finally succeeding in early November. But the Allied forces can only free about half of the Netherlands. The rest remain under Nazi occupation.
A veteran Canadian brigade jars Jerry loose from his toehold in the vital territory.
Dutch railway workers strike, hoping to weaken the Nazi supply lines. The response is brutal. Food shipments are cut off, and what follows becomes known as the Hunger Winter, with millions facing starvation.
The great drive is on.
Finally, in April of 1945, Canadian troops sweep through German positions, bringing liberation town by town. They reach Camp Westerbork, where Anne Frank was among the 100,000 Dutch Jews collected and deported to death camps. It's too late to save them. But Canadians bring relief to survivors of the long, bitter winter.
In Holland, we are liberators and friends.
And by the time Germany surrenders on May the 5th, 1945, a bond has been formed that remains unbroken.
So Tim, you look at some of those pictures and, you know, something sometimes about the black and white makes it feel distant, even more distant. But can you paint us a picture of the extent of the bravery and the courage and the grit that it took to just get through that?
Yeah, and nearly unimaginable, I think. I can't understand it. I've read the letters and diaries of those Canadians. I've had a chance to speak to them, to listen to them, to do oral histories, and still there's something otherworldly about it. Their ability to keep fighting against the odds, attacking the Germans who were dug in position after position. The fabulous footage that we saw there from the Battle of the Scheldt. Really a critical battle for the Allied forces given to the Canadians to clear the approaches to Antwerp. And why Antwerp was so important was that was the key port where all the logistics had to come in, all the shells and munitions and food for the Allied armies, for the Americans, for the British. That was given to the Canadians, and they succeeded after about 5 weeks of brutal battle and combat. And I think most Canadians don't know about that, but that's probably the second most important contribution of the Canadian Army next to D-Day and holding the bridgehead. Though the clearing of Antwerp, and to speak to those veterans, and you've had a chance to do that, we sometimes ask them, how did you do it? And they often downplay it. They're almost aw shucks. But the courage it required is really quite remarkable. These were ordinary men. They were citizen soldiers for the most part. They were students and clerks and farmers, and yet somehow they were wielded together, as you said, as the spearhead.
Thank you. Why don't we take a moment and just listen to the Kelowna Pipers for a second? These pipers play in a very special place, this one. This is sacred space, really. It is designed to be a place of beauty for those who were killed in what was the sheer ugliness of war.
Amidst all this quiet is where bravery finally found rest. Row upon row of stones and names, a testament to the fierce battles that once raged here. We're just south of the city of Nijmegen, where in early 1945, the 1st Canadian Army set off on a push into Germany. The Battle of the Rhineland was a critical phase leading to the liberation of the Netherlands. And Canadians paid a heavy price. More than 2,300 are buried here in the Groesbeek Canadian War Cemetery. And for those whose bodies were never recovered, their names are etched in stone at the Groesbeek Memorial.
So, Tim, as we watch that, we're also watching people behind us who have been going through the cemetery, taking lots of pictures, placing flags. You know, I'm looking for someone who was from Langley. Here's the flag for my community. I'm looking for someone my dad used to visit. Here's something my dad would have liked.
Yeah.
What more can you tell us about this place and how it came to be?
Well, it is. I mean, you captured it nicely there. I think the soberness, the grief and the sorrow mixed with beauty, and maybe to some degree a hope there of remembrance and the obligation of care. And sometimes we talk about that. What is the debt that is owed? And I think many of us would agree that those who fall in battle for Canada deserve a headstone, a grave. The Commonwealth War Graves Commission keeps these cemeteries established in 1917 for the First World War, but also the Second World War. There are thousands of these cemeteries around the world. We are at this one named after Canada for the 2,300 Canadian dead. And when you walk, as you see people walking and stopping and staring, for me, the maple leaf, seeing the engraved maple leaf, such a powerful Canadian symbol. And you and I had a chance to walk and to stop and to contemplate those epitaphs, the notes left by the next of kin. They are agonizing.
I just want to explain that for a second, because on the headstones, aside from the name, the rank, the medals, are sometimes quotes from their families. So it's not simply a rest in peace or you shall be remembered, but these are personal inscriptions.
Yeah, and they're really quite gut-wrenching, I think. I think we both, we were both tearing up there. These young men, and they're mostly young, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds, 24, from across Canada. I've seen English Canadians and French Canadians. A Jewish Canadian lies here, and probably more Indigenous Canadians, New Canadians, British Canadians. They're all here, and they stand together. Their bodies were not returned to Canada, and that's one of the reasons why this place is so powerful. We have to come here, and they are here. And I think walking and contemplating those epitaphs remind us that it's more than just the fallen soldiers, isn't it? There was a mother, a father, a widow, children, and we should reflect on them today as well.
Indeed. And lucky us, we're still able to hear the stories from the vets who remain, the liberators who remain. Chris Brown is also with us in the Netherlands, also capturing some of these stories. And he has some tales from the veterans themselves. Chris?
Adrienne, the town of Apeldoorn, about 70 kilometers away, is one of many Dutch communities with events over the next few days. Canada has opened a pavilion there about the liberation of Holland 80 years ago, and it was opened a short time ago by Honorary Lieutenant General Richard Romer, a remarkable gentleman, 101 years old. 80 years ago, his plane was flying in the skies over Holland. I spoke to him.
It's important to me personally because I have been involved in some of the activities that have resulted in the surrender of the German forces in the first place. And I fought here and did my tour of operations here. I finished my tour of 135 missions here.
When you look at the world now and questions about collective defense in Europe, how important is it to remember the lessons that people like you fought for?
Well, one of the things that we have to do in our country is to pay a lot more attention than we do about our own defense. I've been involved in the high Arctic of Canada for a long time with activities and writing and books and so forth. And I'm always disappointed that we don't have a proper attitude toward defense of Canada. And I'm one of those who hopes that things will change in the short term. I have a plan that I want to take to the new Prime Minister, because we've got to do something about the defense of the high Arctic of Canada.
101-year-old Richard Romer. I was speaking to him earlier today in Apeldoorn. Adrienne.
Thank you, Chris. 99-year-old Ernie Wiles will be here today, just a young fella on that trip. He was in the front row on it, on the overnight flight from Toronto to Amsterdam. He looked raring to go. He was here a decade ago, and he tells us he was allowed to do a tandem jump then. And he joked this week that he wanted to jump again, but solo this time. Ernie Wiles is, and always has been, incredibly determined and brave, fighting to liberate the Netherlands behind enemy lines. Have a listen.
I kept thinking about, geez, it'd be nice jumping out of a parachute. And just for that one reason, I just went down to the exhibition grounds and went down and had to talk to them about it, you know. And of course, my mom and dad just about went crazy, you know. Well, you know, you were into it then because the Germans were all in Holland and Belgium, all in there, so we knew when we landed what we had to do. You know, blowing up all the boats, we had to stop them right there, and that's what our job was. Any of the ones that, you know, were still wanting to fight, well, we had to clean them all up. Every town, every village, every place they could hide out, and of course, they were after us too, remember. It was scary, but you didn't really stop too much to think about it.
So that was Ernie Wiles, and so's this. I want to hold this up for you. This is a baseball card that was given to all of the veterans. Each one got a baseball card with who they are. On the back is where they served. And they hand these out to kids who ask about them. So I'm going to hang on to Ernie's. Tim, you can get General Romer's card.
Very good. Thank you.
These are very precious here, and it speaks to that connection between the veterans and the teens here in the Netherlands, some of whom have become pen pals for these veterans. Ernie Wiles, of course, was just a teenager during the war, which is why some of these stories resonate so deeply with teens, even 8 decades later. So we asked Deanna Sumanek-Johnson to look into that connection. She is at Bloor Collegiate Institute, which is a high school in Toronto. She's there this morning with students who have been working on a special project for this anniversary. Good morning, Deanna.
Good morning, Adrienne. As you are in the Netherlands, watching you right now here from downtown Toronto, I am with young people who are members of the Museo Club here at Bloor Collegiate. It's a history lovers club that I absolutely would have been a part of when I was their age. And with me is Alice Buckley. Alice, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Adrienne, I met Alice and her classmates around Remembrance Day through their teacher, Katie Whitfield. So I know that Alice you've been to Europe, you've been at Juno Beach, actually, for commemorations of D-Day. When we're talking about the Victory in Europe Day, the liberation of the Netherlands, why does it still matter and resonate with young people like you who are in grade 11?
I think it still matters because it's really important to acknowledge their sacrifices. And especially for us, our project mainly focuses on the students of Bloor Collegiate who served in the war. It's important to realize that they were our age when they were helping out, maybe just a little bit older when they died. And that could be us. It's important to acknowledge.
An emotional connection, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And show me, what do you have in your hand before we have to go?
I have these origami tulips that we made. The tulips are very symbolic to the liberation of the Netherlands. We made enough tulips to represent each of the students of Bloor Collegiate who died as part of an exhibit that we put together.
Thank you so much, Alice. There you go, Adrienne. You were talking about the tulips, beautiful origami tulips, here as young people, teenagers today, commemorate those, many of whom were teenagers, when they gave their lives for liberation of the Netherlands. Adrienne.
Deanna, thanks very much. And indeed, you will hear a lot about tulips over the course of this day. Why those flowers in particular, why the connection, why you see them in Canada. We'll talk about that a little later. But I wanted to check back in with Tim for a moment about this connection, teen to teen. What you're seeing there and how much that is growing in a way.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking 3, 4, 5 generations here. So that you might think that would be lost, the relevance. But don't we have some great teachers in this country and great students? And finding innovative ways, I think, to make those connections. So in that case, with school members. In other cases, local cenotaphs and looking at the names there. And having encountered others, these baseball cards. These are all small ways to help, I think, make it relevant, to remind people that while it was 80 years ago and they're black and white photographs or film, they live, felt dawn, to quote John McCrae's in Flanders Fields. And this is important. This is how we keep these stories going. And we have to work at this. It doesn't just happen. We've got to make the effort. And I think that's such a critical part of events like this.
And of that phrase we talked about at D-Day, that remembrance is an act. It's not a thought. Also back in Canada at the Canadian War Museum in Ottawa, where Tim usually is, this morning is Murray Brewster, who has been looking into a very Canadian story to mark these moments. So Murray, what have you found?
Well, good morning, Adrienne. And yes, I am at the Canadian War Museum. I've been going through the archives, and I came across a largely forgotten story about 2 Canadian soldiers. I want to take you back almost 80 years to the 4th of May, 1945. And Canadian troops are not only fighting in the Netherlands, but they're fighting in northern Germany. And the Canadian Grenadier Guards Regiment, a tank regiment, is fighting north of Oldensburg, Germany. When the padre for the unit, honorary captain, Albert McCreary, and a lieutenant, tank lieutenant, Norm Goldie, were going out on an errand of mercy. They had heard from German prisoners that there were wounded German soldiers, and they went out looking for them to bring them back. They never returned. Now, it was a few days before McCreary's body was found in a bog. He'd been shot, but it was this incredible errand of mercy that Canadian troops undertook in the last hours, because you see, that was 3 o'clock in the afternoon when they went out to rescue these Germans. At 8:30 in the evening is when word came to the Canadian headquarters that a ceasefire was going to take place. So I went looking through and trying to tell their story, and mostly they died in a manner that nobody quite knows exactly what happened to them. And it's just a very Canadian story, very indicative of some of the things that Canadian troops were doing, because near the end of the war, they had seen a lot, and yet they had not lost their humanity, and they were out there trying to help enemy wounded.
Indeed. Murray, just to explain for people who are watching on one side of the screen here, you're seeing some of the dignitaries arrive. Canada's ambassador, for example, Hugh Hatsett is here in the Netherlands, is welcoming some of the people, certainly from some of the Indigenous delegations who are here as well. So this ceremony is getting close to starting. When it does, we will stay quiet and we can all listen to it together. But while we have a chance here to talk to Murray, I'm curious, Murray, you said this is a very Canadian story. There are so many Canadian stories. What is it about this one in particular that made you want to tell it?
Well, Adrienne, as you know, I spent a lot of time covering the Canadian War and on-combat operations with Canadian troops in Afghanistan. And as I was flipping through the archives and the official history, I was struck by this particular story because the thought that went through my mind was that it's just so typically Canadian, because they went out regardless of who the person was. They were looking to help. They were looking to help the enemy. And it just spoke to me in the sense of, I saw so many similar type acts when I was in Afghanistan. And it's representative of the Canadian soldiers, the extraordinary courage that it must have took for Captain McCreary to go out, possibly knowing that the war was almost over. He could have chosen self-interest, and he didn't, and neither did Lieutenant Goldie. And it was these kinds of things that I witnessed when I was in Afghanistan, extraordinary acts of courage, but also extraordinary acts of compassion. And I think this is one of the things that differentiates our soldiers often when they're forced into wars and they have to fight.
Wow, that's really moving. Lieutenant Goldie's name is on the memorial here, Murray, and I think that story, what a thing it is they did, and for it to end like that. Murray, thank you very much. I'm just struck by that continuity of compassion and that continuity of loss, Tim.
Yeah, I think Murray said so well, and Murray, who's been in the war zone and conflict zones, as I know you have, you pick up things, and part of that is seeing, and some of it is hearing, and now for many of us, it's in the archives, and I think isn't that something? But Murray was standing in front of our newest exhibition, Last Voices, where we've interviewed Second World War veterans to draw out these stories, and they're not all as powerful and as moving as that, but they all have meaning, and I've always been struck by talking to and listening to veterans. And we need to create that space. But maybe just to come back to what that story Murray told there of those two Canadians killed only hours before in effect, the armistice. There were 1,200 Canadians killed in April and early May. And that gives both a sense of the fighting and the brutal nature of that the liberation that we've been talking about came at the end of a bayonet or a tank, because the Germans were holding on tight. And as we were fighting forward, we didn't use the full weight of our artillery because we didn't want to kill the civilians. And that too, I think, is a Canadian story. And in fact, we took casualties to save Dutch lives there. So I think these are just some of the stories that are coming out today. There will be more, but to me, this is the stuff of history.
It's alive.
It's alive.
Tim, thank you. Another veteran who was planning to come but couldn't at the very last minute because travel is so grueling is Ed Stafford. He shared with us the story of how his best friend was killed in a senseless moment 80 years ago.
It's how he was killed, The whole thing was just so stupid, He was the crew commander of his tank. They got hit with a bazooka, knocked out the traverse. So he got outside under fire. He got outside, pulled the gun around so that the guy could shoot the gun, He went back, and the first thing he did was go to the maintenance and get the traverse fixed. He parked the tank, got out of his sleeping gear and spread it out on the ground. A gas truck, the guy ran over him. I hope it wasn't for nothing. I don't think any of us knew what we were getting into.
So Ed is 104. Ed was supposed to travel over, just at the last minute wasn't able to. He might be watching this morning, and we know, Ed, you wanted to see your friend Herbie's grave. We went to check on it for you, for him, take some pictures. As we know, your family, Ed, will also do. And I think Crystal Gumansing is with us now, and with Ed's daughter, Jackie. Is that right, Crystal?
That's right, Adrienne. This is Jackie Stafford, daughter of Ed, and we were just hearing from your dad, and he was talking about visiting Herbie's grave. Mm-hmm. Of course, you were here for the 70th anniversary. You will be going over to his best friend's grave. You were telling me a little bit earlier, will it be a video call for the service? How will you make sure that your dad is also a part of today?
Oh, my sister's on standby with WhatsApp, so we'll be doing a WhatsApp video call with him shortly, yes.
What does it mean for you to sort of step into this role where you're now the conduit, you're the connection between countries, between generations, and is that a responsibility that you're happy to take on?
Oh, it's a wonderful responsibility because, you know, my dad and all these World War II veterans are just amazing human beings, and so if I can do something to continue the relationship and ensure that our future generations understand the importance of what they did, then that's a privilege.
And it is so critical. Life is different here in Groesbeek, in Appledon. So many communities have their freedom because of men and women like your father. Mm-hmm. Tell me, when you're around the community, you're here, Dutch people find out you're Canadian, your father was a veteran, what do they say to you?
Well, the first thing they say is to thank him for his service. But 10 years ago when we were here, what really amazed me is how seriously they take the importance of gratitude and remembering. They would, in the parades, and you'll probably see it again happen this year, they bring their babies up to touch and meet the veterans. And I think it's a piece of see what you've done. And I think a piece of it is, to connect their children to the veterans. And of course, in Canada, we call them veterans, but here they call them liberators.
And that's such an important part, and it's key. And really, if you're not here, if you haven't heard from somebody who's been here, you don't know that critical piece of the story. Now, you're not, handing your babies over, but your two adult babies made the trip. I'm going to get them to slowly walk in as well here. We'll squeeze everybody in. Connor, Allison also here. We were talking about the fact that this is very much generational, and you're encouraging them to take on, the responsibility of sharing the stories, of visiting the graves. What's it like for you to have them with you this year? Because they weren't here for previous visits.
Oh, it's amazing to have them. I think it's been part of their life all through their life, is connecting with their grandfather and understanding the importance of the role that he did as a World War II veteran. Allison became, she's a paramedic, and she joined the color guard of for them so that she could march with my father, because my father's marched in the Canadian the Warriors Day Parade at the CNE every year for 65 years, and so she wanted that chance to be able to march with him, and it's just one example of the different things that my children do to connect with their grandfather and understand the importance of his role as a liberator here, and also in Italy and England and the other places he served. Yeah,
a very active connection, a very active act of remembrance. I didn't tell you, Alison, I was going to ask you a question, but I'm going to reach across your mom, Jackie, here. We met in the airport just by happenstance, and you started telling me the story, and you said that you're incredibly proud. How are you feeling today?
Oh, I'm really, really proud to be here, and I'm really proud of him, and I just, I'm holding him with me and thinking about how happy he would be to be here, and happy he would be to know that we're here, following up with his friend, and I just think we're the lucky ones, and you really see there are however many Canadians buried here, and we really are the lucky ones because he got to come home and continue,
Mhm.
right?
And Jackie, you've been here a number of times. You've done a number of ceremonies. Do you still get emotional? Is it still?
Yes, I mean, I was at the airport coming in with the 20 veterans who were able to make it. And as soon as they walked in, I started crying. And I just think, like seeing them, and they're all so much like my dad. The experiences they've done, the personalities, the sense of humor, the joy that they have in their lives now, and they're all 99 to 105, and their sense of humor and the sense of service that they have to each other and still to the country is inspiring.
And we are grateful for it and grateful for your time here today. Thank you very much. Connor, I kept up my end of the bargain. I did not make you speak on camera. I am very, very grateful that you all came and shared Ed's story with us. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Jackie Stafford family, we have Allison and Connor. Just some of the voices, some of the active acts of remembrance that we're seeing here at Groesbeek Canadian War Cemetery. And, we talk about the emotion of it, Adrienne, and it is so emotional, and likely it will get a little more emotional.
Thank you, Crystal. Thanks very much to the Staffords. And the picture you're looking at on your screen is why it's emotional, because these are their friends these veterans are coming to see. That is General Richard Romer. 101, he's an amazing man, and more of the veterans are starting to come one by one. A lot of them reuniting, in a way, with the teenagers, the young friends they left behind. The notion of being here and spending times at these grave sites means the world to them. But just as much, for some, is to connect with that gratitude that you keep hearing about. It is like jet fuel for these men, and to hear them talk about it is striking. So why don't we do that? Ernie Wiles told us when we spoke with him about that deep bond of gratitude between the Netherlands and Canada and what it means to return to mark this special anniversary. Why don't we have a listen to how he describes it?
The love they had for us going over and doing what we did. And we were able to go back. Lots never go back. But for us to go back and see it all again and see how they appreciated it. It was just, appreciation never stopped. Just everywhere you went, you're a Canadian, you're a Canadian. It was really something, and I expect it's going to be the same again this way, this time when we go.
Oh, Ernie. Ernie's an amazing guy. He was in the front row on that plane last night. I'm looking forward to seeing him again. You're looking at the screen here. George Couture is in the middle there. We also spoke with him last year for D-Day, another one of these vets who went above and beyond on D-Day and then was asked to do more, Tim. I believe that is Mr. Vinay on the right of the screen. You know, it's one of... the tyranny of time is that there are fewer of these veterans left, and yet the curious gift about having not many of them left is that we know them, and Canadians know them, and we have these baseball cards, and the kids know to say, well, there's Captain Bill. There's a connection there.
Yeah, these veterans who are, I suppose, representing their generation, the 1.1 million who enlisted, and again, just to context, put that into context, that's from a country of 11.5 million. So 1 in 10 Canadians served in this war, this necessary war that had to be won. And we are looking really at those who beat the odds in the war, but also have beat the odds against the tyranny of time, as you said so nicely there. They are among the last, and I think that's part of what provides, I think, a day like this so much meaning, and to see them and we can look over our shoulder and see them coming in, and Canadians are watching, and there are Dutch people as well who are here. Again, I think to say thank you, to pay their respects. They don't seem to be trying to touch them as they did 80 years ago, but maybe that will come later. But certainly you can feel the gratitude, I think, and it must be quite overwhelming.
I just want to stop you there because just on the right of the frame, they just went through were the McNamaras. So it's Annie McNamara and her husband. Annie worked in the entertainment unit, if you will. Annie is 102. There's her husband. He is 105.
Oh,
this
my
amazing couple, when they got on the plane Wednesday night, the first thing Annie asked is if she could watch the Habs game on the flight. She was most concerned about the score. We didn't want to tell her what it was.
Yeah.
It didn't start off going very well, but
50,000 women who served in uniform, first time in this war other than nurses in previous wars, and Annie is one of them.
Why don't we just listen to the applause, rightly so, for men like Captain Bill right there on the left. That must feel good, that applause.
Oh, I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful to mark their presence. That's not an easy flight. You made it, I made it, but to think that they've been brought here representing their country, representing those who served and have survived. We see people, standing ovation, clapping, thanking them. What a special time. And I guess, Adrienne, not dissimilar to 80 years ago, as the Canadians swept through Dutch town and Dutch cities where they were being cheered and clapped. That is an important part of this. We are marking both VE Day, but also the liberation of the Dutch. And again, to think, what is the meaning here? It is the returning of freedom. Liberation, that's a powerful word, and these are the liberators.
And I think war is no stranger. Europe's no stranger to war. It wasn't then. It isn't now.
No.
There's an extra connection there.
Yeah.
But I think when people read about the Netherlands and hear them talk, to hear the soldiers as they were on that flight talking about the battle, it's the hunger they saw that seems to have haunted them in a different way. The children who were starving horrifically. Food was weaponized.
It was weaponized. The Nazi overlords deliberately did that. Thousands had died, the young and the old. And in fact, the Canadians were racing against time, racing to feed these starving people. And I have spoken to Dutch Canadians, and they have said to me, they were young at the time, and an old guy said to me, he was about 80, he said, you know what I think of liberation, Tim, Dr. Cook, I think he called me? I think of chocolate bars. He had never tasted chocolate. And the Canadian soldiers, they gave their chocolate, they gave their cigarettes, everybody smoked, they gave their food. Canadians talked about going hungry to ensure that these families, which were going through famine situations, could survive as the food rushed behind them. And within about 3 or 4 weeks, the crisis was over. The Dutch had enough food, but there was a period there. If the war had gone on for another couple of weeks or even months, there would have been mass deaths throughout the Netherlands. And that, too, is worth remembering. That is part of the liberation.
That is Mr. Siegfried. His birthday is tomorrow. He will be, I think, 100 tomorrow. So the vigil is about to begin. There will be a moment where, like you, we just stop and listen. You may hear from us every now and then if there's something we should be talking about. But keep a couple things in mind. When you see tulips over the next few days, remember that people had to eat those tulip bulbs to survive. And when the war was over, after Canada had allowed for the Dutch royal family to hide in safety in Canada, there was a gift of 150,000 tulips from the Dutch royal family to Canada, and they keep coming. And that is why every spring you see Ottawa in full bloom. There is a direct line between those beautiful bucolic scenes and the sacrifice and blood that was spilled on this soil.
Each May, Ottawa pops with color. The Canadian Tulip Festival is a huge draw, but this bright moment originates in a much darker place. During the final months of the war, the flowers the Netherlands was known for became life-saving. When food ran out and starvation set in, people started to eat the tulip bulbs to survive. It was in that time of desperation that the Canadians broke through. By then, members of the Dutch royal family were already sheltering in Ottawa. And in 1943, the maternity ward of the Ottawa Civic Hospital was declared extraterritorial for the birth of Princess Margriet, so that she would have only Dutch citizenship. When the war finally ended, the Dutch sent 100,000 tulip bulbs to Ottawa as a thank you. And every year, more have arrived. The tradition as enduring as the friendship the two countries share.
Nice smile on General Romer's face there.
There sure is. I think there's a lot of smiles. There are tears.
Mm-hmm.
This is a day of high emotion, and just to talking about tulips there, it won't be the last time. Those tulips are such a powerful symbol, aren't they? And we were talking before about how when we think of remembrance, often it's the poppy, of course, adopted in Canada, I think in 1921, and then more widely from 22 onwards. These are powerful symbols, and yet the tulip, I think, is very specific to the Second World War and the liberation, and as you said, those gifts back to Canada.
First Nation, who will perform an indigenous ceremony and drumming.
Can you hear me okay? Should I use you hear me? No?
That is Nova Wolf. They are the Indigenous artists who designed the Vancouver Canucks logo. This is a person we have seen with some frequency and is extremely well respected for their artistry here.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Stay there. It's okay.
Anasiam nasieya. Antha. Anasiam nasieya. Antha. Poyentin. Talatin ak hamathgoyam. Inclu. Samath. Aitna squalawin kunasi kotsnala. Aitna squalawin tatalit to hunkamidam squel. Right now I'm going to call upon a witness, and the witness is chosen because they're going to talk about the work that happens here today. So I'm going to call upon Jills. Please come get your payment. and I'll be giving him 50 cents. And the reason why I'm giving him 50 cents is because when the government took away our culture and our lands and ways of life, that it cost 50 cents at the time to be able to buy a blanket. So that's why I'm paying our Métis relative here today that amount of money, and to show that good work and show that good thing. Mitsep Huiosiem. I come from the land of Musqueam in Vancouver, Canada. My grandfather, he enlisted Percy Charles Thumpkin. So that's where I get my voice, and that's where I get my singing voice today. I'm going to be doing a brushing with cedar within this display right here. And then I'll be doing some tobacco as well too, which was gifted to me by Chris. So I raise my hands to you, and what that means to me is that I'm thanking you. I'm showing gratitude towards you. So then I'll share the Musqueam Warrior song, and that's what I'll be doing forward today. So I'm going to grab my cedar, and I'm going to lay some tobacco down, and then I'll share the Musqueam Warriors song. See, Talitsin, I thank you all. So this song, the Musqueam Warrior song, Owa Tennessee, see, Owa Tennessee, see. Show no fear, know no fear. Like these people here today that have shown back before when everything was happening. So I raise my hands to all of you.
hands to you. That was the story of Kaya Palanoch. I'm a descendant of Kaya Palanoch. He was a warrior, just like the warriors in front of me here. And that song was written as he was being killed by the Haida Raiders. Oh, Tennessee, oh, Tennessee, show no fear, no fear. So I'm very honored to be able to do this work and very honored to be able to learn from all of this, to have this experience. And I hope that's appreciated as much as I appreciated you. So I thank you. And what I did here today was with the cedar brushing, that is to show that I'm blessing the land and I'm blessing the things, and you know that I'm coming in with good intentions and with a good heart. Because if you can't connect your mind and your heart, you can't help anybody. I've been delegated as knowledge keeper of my family, of the Charles family. My father, Osman Poyentin, I carry his name today. It is an ancestral name. It's very old. It came from the Samath village. So I'd like to thank all of you. Everything that's here that happened today, all medicine. The people beside you, medicine. The veterans here today, medicine. Seeing all these graves, knowing that everything's being taken care of, so these people can rest, and rest easy knowing that they liberated a very beautiful place. I have family here of the Vidness family, and it's very honorable to be able to come to this territory. Dominic Reginald Daniel of the Tsleil-Waututh Nation gave his life in World War II at the age of 25. And now here at the age of 25, I stand here today. I use my grandfather's voice. I will pass it down to my children when I have them. These are my words. It is just my turn to use them. So remember, when you go home and you see your family, you thank them, you tell them you love them, you tell them what you've seen here today. You are also witnesses, but I did call upon jails for that particular reason, to have that good work and to show Coast Salish law and Coast Salish protocol. So today is good medicine. We are all medicine, one with the land and one with each other. Not Samat, not Samat. Yuck with it. Yuck with it. Unwind yourself. Yuck with it. Unbind yourself. Enjoy the weather. And when you think of your friends and family that you've lost due to this or any other reason, they're always with you. And when you miss them, in my teachings, in my way of life, that means that they are missing you. So it is a good day here to travel all the way here from Vancouver, Canada. I am a speaker and knowledge keeper. That is where I've been delegated. Some of you may have heard this before. They keep telling me that. Go teach, young man, is what they tell me. So that's what I've done here. And I hope that you feel honored, because I feel honored to be here. So Sitalitzen, Heitzhepka, Siem.
Thank you very much, Nova Wolf. Dear guests, geachte aanwezigen, please stand when able for the entrance of the Guard and the Canadian Armed Forces Band. Wilt u indien mogelijk gaan staan voor de binnenkomst van de Guard en de Canadian Armed Forces Band.
And right turn. Dressing. Left. Dress. Eyes front. Stand at ease. Stand easy.
Dear guests, please be seated. Good afternoon. Welcome to this historical and important location for the commemoration of 80 years of freedom and the opening ceremony of the Faces of Groesbeek exhibition. Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. Bienvenue.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this important and historic site for the commemoration of 80 years of freedom and the opening ceremony of the Groesbeek Faces exhibition.
Welkom op deze historische en belangrijke locatie om 80 jaar vrijheid te herdenken. En voor de openingsceremonie van de Faces to Grace tentoonstelling hier in Groesbeek. Because we have many international guests, most of the ceremony will be done in the English language. And before we start with the ceremony, I would like to ask you to silence or switch off your mobile phones. Dames en heren, wilt u alsjeblieft uw telefoon op stil zetten. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Ton Linse, the former Netherlands military attaché to Canada, and I have the honor to be the master of ceremony this afternoon. First, I would like to introduce some of the guests we have attending this afternoon. A special welcome to His Excellency Mr. Hugh Edsett, Ambassador of Canada to the Netherlands. Mr. Paul Letwell, Deputy Minister, Veterans Affairs, Canada. Lieutenant General Lise Bougon, Chief Military Personnel and Commander Military Personnel Command. Honorary Lieutenant General Richard Reumer, Distinguished World War II veteran. Canadian Armed Forces Chief Warrant Officer Robert McCann. Amy Meunier, Assistant Deputy Minister of Veterans Affairs, Canada. Nova Wolf, Knowledge Keeper, Musqueam First Nation. Beatrice Dimitris, Elder Métis Nation of Alberta. Indigenous guest from Canada. Colonel Yannick Lemeu, the Canadian Defence Attaché to the Netherlands, Belgium and Luxembourg. Miss Vanessa Kurtz, teacher at the All Saints High School in Kanata, Canada. The Canadian Armed Forces Contingent. The Kelowna Pipe Society. And families of Canadian soldiers that are buried here at Groesbeek. I would also like to welcome the Honourable Mr. Slinkman, Mayor of the Municipality of Bergendal, Mr. Xavier Pupping, Area Director Western and Central Europe for the Commonwealth War Grave Commission, Mr. Peter Drent, Provincial Executive of the Province of Gelderland, und auch ein herzliches Willkommen für die Vertreters der Gemeinde Kranenburg, Kleef und Rees. Further, a special welcome to, I will pronounce it wrongly, Alice van Beckham, Chairwoman of the Faces to Grace Foundation. En een bijzonder welkom voor de jonge scouts van de scoutinggroep De Bevers uit Nijmegen, die vanmiddag een belangrijke rol hebben bij deze herdenking. A special welcome to the young scouts of the scouting group The Bevers from Nijmegen, who will have an important role this afternoon during the ceremony. And last, but certainly not least, a very, very warm welcome to the Canadian veterans who made the long trip from Canada to attend this ceremony. It's an honor to have you here in Groesbeek, and the people of the Netherlands are still very grateful of your efforts to bring peace again to the Netherlands. Peace that has lasted now for 80 years, but still cannot be taken for granted. Thank you very much for being here. Before we start with the first speaker, we have an indigenous performance by Gil and Sarah Crevier, Leanna Wilson and Sandy Fay, so please come forward. Thank you very much for this performance. Now I would like to introduce the first speaker, His Excellency Youth Asset, Ambassador of Canada to the Netherlands.
honored guests, dearest veterans, family members and friends, chers vétérans, membres de famille et amis.
Dear veterans, family, friends.
Om hier vandaag te zijn. Few words could ever truly convey the deep emotions that we feel here in the Netherlands, in Groesbeek Canadian War Cemetery, as we gather to commemorate the valiant souls who so courageously fought for freedom during the Second World War. Nowhere is the cost of peace more evident than among the graves of those who gave their lives to secure it. For the 2,610 Commonwealth soldiers buried here, we wish it could be different. We wish that they could stand amongst us, frail as some by now would be, and that they too could feel the magnitude of this moment. They gave their lives for us, for a country that knows and has never forgotten the profound value of freedom and of peace. As the Second World War ended, the Netherlands emerged from the shadows of occupation to rebuild anew. Its communities and countryside had been badly damaged by the ravages of war, and yet its resilience and determination endured. Brick by brick, the spirit of unity and hope that had sustained the Dutch throughout their darkest days became the foundation for their future. A foundation that was underpinned then, as it is underpinned now, by a deep respect for human dignity, and always the sincerest gratitude for the Canadians who helped the Netherlands to be free. Canadian troops left Europe knowing that peace had been won, that they had fulfilled their duty and done right by the people and the values that they had been sent here to defend. These were individuals who answered the call to serve, each playing their part with courage, skill, and determination. But while many did go home, many others did not. They made the ultimate sacrifice, leaving this earth without ever knowing if the Allies would finally find and win that peace. Le braveur et le altruisme demeurent à jamais gravés dans nos mémoires.
Remains engraved in our memories. We solemnly remember the quality of life that we enjoy today is owed to our soldiers, and that this is firmly anchored in their sacrifices. And this comes with a profound responsibility for all generations to remember. We are the temporary guardians of the country that we inherited. And we must remember those who never had the opportunity to live past the war.
Selflessness remain forever engraved in our memories, a solemn reminder that the quality of life we are so fortunate to still enjoy today, and that our troops all over the world continue to protect, is deeply rooted in their sacrifice. But with this legacy comes a profound responsibility that every subsequent generation has had to embrace and uphold. For we are the temporary custodians of the peace that we inherited, and caretakers of the memories of those who never got the chance to live beyond the war. It was long ago that the names of our fallen were etched into the facades of these grave markers. But not much more was known of them when the chisel met the stone. Not where they came from, not what they did, not who they really were. To Alice Van Beckham and to the many, many volunteers I know who've assisted you and your organization, Faces to Graves, with this effort, thank you. Thank you for allowing us to honor these Canadians as more than names carved in rock, but as real people who lived real lives and left real legacies. Like James David Eddy of Nova Scotia, and Charles-Émile Gagnon of Quebec, or Charles Nahawak Gezek from the Shugwe-Anda First Nation Reserve in Ontario, and Minora Morgan Tanaka of Saskatchewan. The photographs around this cemetery show the faces of those that we lost, but more importantly, they tell the stories of those that we must not ever forget. On behalf of a grateful nation, dank u, thank you, merci.
Thank you for your words, Ambassador. I invite now Mr. Mark Slinkman, Mayor of the Municipality of Bergendal, to come forward.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear veterans, merci à tous d'être ici aujourd'hui.
Thank you all for
Merci
being
de
here
vous
today.
joindre à nous.
Thank you for joining us to commemorate 80 years of freedom and also to celebrate together, Canadians and Dutch, that we are able to live in peace, in countries that value democracy, in a world that sometimes seems in trouble, but we will always remain in solidarity, yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
We are gathered here today, ladies and gentlemen, to commemorate the end of the Second World War and the return of liberty to Western Europe after 5 years of bloodshed and malevolent oppression. The Allied victory over Nazi Germany was followed by a stunning and historically unparalleled 80 years of continuous peace on our continent. 3 generations have been born after 1945, growing up in a world that led them to believe that peace is the natural state of mankind and that freedom will naturally endure. The Russian invasion of Ukraine and the cruel war that followed has given us Europeans a rude awakening. The continuing suffering of our Ukrainian friends vividly revives the fading memory of the horrors of our own war, the suffering and the bloodshed, the misery and the waste of human life. Other recent developments in the world add to our worries. They remind us of the fragility of liberty, how easy freedoms can be trampled upon, how quickly our own institutions can be used against us in the wrong hands, how the manipulation of the truth can sway groups of people and turn them against one another. History doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. As the famous quote goes, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. And here we are today, and we found ourselves surrounded by more than 2,600 of these good men. For them, it was never an option to do nothing and let evil engulf the world. They enlisted and prepared themselves to actively combat the murderous regime that dominated Europe. For some of them, this meant a return to the land their parents or grandparents had hailed from. For many, though, the Netherlands must have been a country they had barely ever even heard of before. And yet they came and ended up making the ultimate sacrifice to liberate its people from cruel subjugation. It is hard to imagine for us the enormity of their generosity, that they would do that for us, people they had never even met. So naturally, we, the liberated, want to know about our benefactors, who they were, what they looked like, what lives, what personal history they left in Canada. For many years now, the Faces to Graves Foundation has been researching the stories of the men that are buried here. Its goal is to give all of these soldiers a face, a photograph, a life story, a background to the silent cross or Star of David that marks their grave. Today we see over 2,000 photographs, over 80% for those that are resting here. It's an incredible achievement that I'm sure will continue until the last face is found. And one of the results of all this investigation is the realization that about 60 of the heroes buried here belong to the Inuit, Métis and First Nation Canadians. We are very grateful to Faces to Graves that we can now do justice to the memories of these brave young men and honor them in a way that would have been recognizable and meaningful to them. Yesterday, the King's aunt, Princess Margriet, opened a very special exhibition in the nearby Freedom Museum. Her Royal Highness was herself born in Ottawa, Canada, during the royal family's exile in World War II. The princess, at 82 years old, recently fractured a bone and is recovering from that. But nonetheless, she made a very rare public appearance yesterday and traveled to Groesbeek, insisting on opening the exhibition herself. You should all go and see it. It tells the stories of the many Canadian soldiers of Indigenous descent. They answered the call in their thousands, like so many other Canadians. Born from a proud ancestry, they also carried with them a long history of colonial subjugation, persecution, and racism. Perhaps they, more than anyone, felt the need to protect freedom overseas. We cannot repeat history, but we can try to make it rhyme. As we tell the stories of these brave men, we may, no, we must strive to find inspiration in them for our time. Inspiration and hope. Hope that when times are growing darker, once more there will be men and women that will step forward, who will speak up against hatred, oppression, and persecution, who will defy evil, and who will fight for liberty. We owe it to the men resting here to preserve the precious gifts of freedom they left us. And we owe it to our children to pass it on undiminished. Together we can. Let's do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Slinkman, for your warm words and your attendance. We shortly pause the ceremony for a bit so we can move the veterans into the shade of our beautiful trees, and then we will continue.
So if you're wondering what is happening at this point in the program, the sun, as you can see, is pretty strong. And so what they're doing right now is moving the veterans into the shade wisely, because there is still a fair amount of time to go in this program. It can get hot very, very quickly. I have to say there is an extraordinary medical team with the veterans. So if you consider that 20 some odd veterans have come here, the whole VAC delegation, Veterans Affairs Canada delegation, was about 75. So there are basically 2 people for every veteran, and they've been taking very good care of them medically. And this is a smart and kind thing to do. So that's what's happening right now. You just heard some comments from Mayor Slinkman of the local area here, the local I don't think he called it municipality. And Mayor Slinkman, and Tim Cook and I will talk about this later, was bringing this whole conversation back to the present. He ended by saying, where we can, let's do. He was talking about the need for people to not be silent in the face of wrong. He was talking about the acknowledgement of racism and the need for countries like Canada to stand up, and how much learning he wanted to do from learning from, he said, our liberators.
Tim.
Yeah, very powerful words, I thought. The fragility of liberty, he said, in reference, I think, to the Russian war against Ukraine and other conflicts, and bringing it back to the Canadians who lay buried here, who he said, we the liberated want to know about them. We want to know who they were. And one of the powerful acts, I think, of this entire event has been to know those who fell and lie buried here. And Adrienne, you and I walked and looked at them, those names, where the age when they were killed. I saw an 18-year-old here. There's a 19-year-old, several 20-year-olds, 21 years old, and older as well. Not everyone was a kid. And they come across from across this country. Many of the headstones in French, speaking to that. I saw a Jewish star. We've heard about Indigenous contributions. So an opportunity here to know the men, and I think they're all men who lay buried here and never had a chance to come home, but also a chance to, I guess, meet these people of history, the 21 veterans we have before us who have had interesting service, some in the infantry, artillery, naval. There's a merchant Navy veteran here, and they have an interesting story. Of course, they weren't considered veterans. They had to fight for veteran status, which they received in 1990 and really continued for that decade. So other stories here, both of the fallen and those who are representing this incredible cohort of Canadians who served from 1939 to 1945.
Thank you all for your patience. We will now continue with the ceremony. And I would like to invite Ms. Alice van Beckham, the chairwoman of the Faces to Grace Foundation, and one of the leading persons behind this event. Alice.
First of all, a warm welcome to the veterans. It's great to have you here. I would like to thank Veteran Affairs Canada for co-hosting this ceremony and the trust placed in the volunteers of Faces to Graves. Today is the opening ceremony of a silent tribute to our liberators, who never came home. And with that, we also honor the soldiers who returned home without their comrades and often struggled to get on with their lives. We are proud to have some of those here today, a lot of them. The Face to Graves non-profit foundation was set up in May 2015. We celebrate the 10th anniversary now, and I am one of the founders, and another founder, Adrienne van der Pol, is here today as well. The purpose of the Face to Graves Foundation is to tell their stories, in which we make them more or less visible by telling who they were. Farmers' sons, promising talents, all beloved sons, husbands and fathers. Today we show their image at their graves. We would also like to get in touch with family in Canada, so that their side of the story can be included in our stories. These life stories compiled by our volunteers are accessible to everyone in a digital monument on the website, where you will find about 1,250 biographies in 2 languages, English and Dutch. We keep their memory alive by telling their stories, lest we forget. Henny Koster, member of our research team, who can't be here today, once said, whilst researching a biography, a soldier moved from a name in my head to a person in my heart. But first, I would like to tell you that today's opening of the photo exhibition wouldn't have been possible without the enormous efforts of all Face to Grace volunteers. They are the ones who write, edit, translate life stories. They give a grave a face. But they also roll up their sleeves when needed. Without their enthusiastic efforts, all these photos would not have been at the graves today. You can recognize our volunteers by a white button with Face to Graves logo on it. They have done a lot of work, managed by the project group of the Faces of Groesbeek. And I'd like to mention two people, Else Schaberg and Fred Hulsman, who worked so hard for this. What can I say? I have no... Yeah. What can I say? I have no words to express how I feel today. All I can say is thank you. I'm proud that our small organization is big in action. We would like to thank our friends of the Commonwealth War Graves Commission. Our sincere thanks for your cooperation, but also their gardeners who maintain this cemetery so beautifully. Chapeau. We want to show the sacrifice of the soldiers and officers who are committed to our liberation. May it be a warning sign for future generations who may live in freedom. And then I also think of the fight in the Ukraine, as a result of which families are plunged into mourning. Several World War II soldiers of the Ukraine origin are buried here in this cemetery. Remember what the price is if we don't appreciate and guard that freedom enough. Remember what the price of our freedom meant to families in Canada. Parents who sometimes received the dreaded message that their sons had died. Here in this cemetery lies a soldier of whom two brothers also died in this war, and two brothers are buried next to each other. And Edmund Levesque, who was killed on his 21st birthday at the Battle for Hoogland. Young wives who received the sad messages, babies who would never be in their father's arms. Also, in my country, babies never met their Canadian father when he was killed in action here. We have a few liberation children here today. One of them is our volunteer Henk Mostert, who fortunately met his father in Canada. There are a few Canadian relatives here today. They can tell you what it really was like when the dreaded telegram was delivered. Like the daughter of Captain Robert Kindersley, Royal Canadian Engineers. She wrote to me, I received a letter from my dad, written on May 13, 1945, saying that he would be home for my 9th birthday in June. He was killed on 31 May while defusing a bomb. Last but not least, I want to thank all the people who have sent us photos, like Donna Maxwell from Calgary, who is here today. She contacted us from day one to share with us the many photos she collected all over. Also a big thank you to Eileen and David Archer. They have sent us an amount of photos and newspaper clippings. In the Canadian Vietnam War Memorial, you will find lots of photos provided by David, who uses the pseudonym Operation Picture Me. Here today also are Peter and Daria from Prince Edward Island, Valkenburg, from Prince Edward Island, known from their blog on the War Trail Memorial Research Project. You have contributed a lot of photos, and we are in touch for 10 years now. Special thanks to all other people who helped to find photos. There are too many to list. And last but not least, Vanessa Kurtz, history teacher at All Saints School in Canada, Ontario. She participates in our school project since she approached us in August 2019, after her travel to the Netherlands with students of her school for the 65th anniversary of liberation. She always ends her email with a quote from Margaret Mead. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. I can tell you, Vanessa, in difficult times, you have inspired me. Thank you. Today we also have special German guests. Ein herzlich willkommen für unsere deutsche Gäste aus Rees und Bienen. There are 34 soldiers of the North Nova Scotia Highlanders buried there, and they all fell in the battle for Beenen. Next Tuesday, May 6, a memorial service will take place in Beenen, at the square in front of the church. The pipes and drums of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police will play an important role in this. It starts at 9:45 in the morning. We also have a special Dutch guest, Jan Smolenaars from Forstenbos. He, along with his brother, was an eyewitness to the crash of the short Sterling bomber LK-548 that killed pilot officer Maurice McHugh of the Royal Australian Air Force. Jan, fijn dat je er bent. I saved the best for last. Face to Graves also has volunteers in Canada who wrote life stories, and sometimes the family does it themselves. Timothy Young is the former Canadian Defence Attaché to the Netherlands, and after he retired and moved to Kingston, Ontario, he is our counsellor to provide military advice, and he is also the editor of all the life stories in Canada for us. Jim Little is a researcher from Turney Valley, Alberta. He is the absolute record holder in writing life stories. He will soon submit his 300th story. Jim, you are amazing. And recently a new member has joined us, Don Halbert from Oak Bend, Manitoba. Don will work on the Queen's Own Cameron Highlanders of Canada. Don, no need to copy Jim. Keep in mind that every story you write is one less of all 2,618 that needs to be done. We are almost halfway there. And we will continue until the last one is done. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Van Beckham, for your work on behalf of the Faces to Graves Foundation. The next speaker is Honorary Lieutenant General Richard Reumer, a distinguished World War II veteran who flew with the Royal Canadian Air Force many missions over occupied Europe during the war. Sir.
Hot day. My role is to have a few words to say on behalf of the wonderful men under the shade, under that tree, the veterans of the fighting in Holland, in which I took part a long, long time ago. At the age of 18 and 19, I was a reconnaissance pilot, looking for bad enemies and finding them, and then going from there. We must, of course, thank those veterans to start with, and we thank the bands that are here, the people parading. It's just a wonderful show of strength and recognition that is so important And it is a significant honor to me to be invited to speak, to say a few words in the recognition and respect of some hundreds of Canadians who populate this magnificent ceremony, the cemetery. I spoke briefly at this cemetery a few years ago, and do so again with special message for all of the fine, dignified Canadian soldiers, naval persons, and airmen whose spirits and souls are much active in this hallowed resting place. I want to speak to say a few words to all who are lodged in this place, having died in many causes, in many ways during Canada's part in the Second World War. I wish to speak to all here who died in the cause of Canada and fought for freedom of oppression. My message is a simple one. You are not forgotten. Your death is remembered, and we are still living souls here, grateful to your sacrifice of your life so many years ago. Pals of ours, friends of ours, all of those who fought with us. I speak to each and every one of you, to your souls, your spirits, your departed but ever-present personages, and to your families here today, to remember you and to thank you for your massive sacrifice for all of us who are still on the grass this side of these grounds. My time in these parts during the war was as a 19-year-old fighter reconnaissance pilot, flying 135 missions that were filled with killer flak shells and enemy anti-aircraft weapons like 88mm guns or small rifles being fired at us from the ground with deadly accuracy. Like hundreds of my flying colleagues, I survived. I'm 101 now. Like hundreds of you who did not survive are here. But when you did survive, it was a legendary reputation for bravery of all Canadians who fought for freedom in the Second World War, and in particular, the brave Canadians by the hundreds who lie here in the soil of this amazingly well-kept treasured place of honor and burial, part of the domain of our capable Minister of Veterans Affairs and his team. We and all of us here, all of the veterans are alive, who are alive today, are forever indebted to you who are forever here in this place. We do remember and cherish you and celebrate your presence on this special day. Those are just a few words, and I'm saying them on behalf of the people sitting in the shade, and on behalf of all the people that are here today to celebrate this occasion. This is the 80th, and it's the kind of situation which does not bear repeating. At the age of 101, I do not expect to be here for the next umpteen years. It's not possible, nor is it wanted. So I want to thank the organizers of this day. I want to thank the ministers. I want to thank the diplomats who have come today to honor, and to thank each and every one of you personally. And I want to say on behalf of the veterans who are sitting under the tree, they're very young people, and they're very pleased to be still alive and doing well, and they are doing well, that is for sure. And thank you for having us. We always enjoy being had.
Thank you, sir, for your service and for your inspiring words. Thank you very much. Now we continue with the blessings. I would like Major Chris van Buskirk, Chaplain Canadian Armed Forces, and Beatrice Dimitris, Elder Métis Nation of Alberta, to offer the blessings.
Can't say bonjour. Hello, veterans, dignitaries, ladies, gentlemen. My name is Beatrice. I am grandmother to the Métis Council veterans in Canada and also a researcher of Métis soldiers of all the wars. Heavenly Father, we are meeting here today asking for your guidance and support as we begin this ceremony. In your wisdom, you called many to serve with courage and strength. Lord, bless them with an abundance of honor and respect that mirrors the magnitude of their sacrifice. Lead our veterans to places where their hearts find peace and recognition. Let their service be acknowledged, not just with words, but through our actions and our deeds. In a world quick to move forward, help us to pause and reflect and give thanks for the freedom preserved by their bravery. Thank you. We salute you. We salute you, veterans, and remember you in our prayers. Amen.
Good afternoon. Bonjour. Kwe. Hoden Maider. Beloved veterans, friends. On her 13th birthday, Anne Frank, just before she and her family went into hiding in Amsterdam, received a diary which she affectionately called Kitty. She wrote, "Writing in a diary is a really strange experience for someone like me. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. I feel like writing because I don't have a friend. So I want the diary to be my friend, and I'm going to call this diary Kitty." Today, if Anne were here, she would see the faces of hundreds and hundreds of friends she never knew she had. Thanks to the Faces to Graves Foundation, we can also see them. Once unknown to us, now they are known. With that thought, I invite you into a moment of reflection through the words of this prayer, or silently according to your own beliefs. O eternal God, our Creator and Redeemer, whose Spirit fills the whole earth, we gather here humbled by the cost of our freedom. Help us to stop and look deeply at the faces all around us, to remember that these belonged to real people who left their lives and loved ones for the cause of freedom and peace. Aidez-nous à arrêter
Help us to stop and reflect on the fact that these were real people with a heart, a voice, a faith, who were created as unique individuals with their own gifts. And help us to see that
despite their differences, even differences as fellow Canadians, being French, English, Inuit, Métis, or First Nations, they came together and became friends and fought as one. Ils se sont quand même battus ensemble,
They
comme
fought
les amis.
together as friends.
Oh Lord, bless this gathering, we pray. Bless the young people and help us all, like those whose faces we see here, to be channels of your love and work together as friends. For in your mercy, this is what you offer us. Amen.
Thank you both for the blessings. Next is the Act of Remembrance. George Cooper will read the Act of Remembrance in English, David Thompson in the indigenous language, and Christopher Michaud in French. Could you please come forward?
They shall not grow old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Thank you.
Ils ne vieilliront pas, comme nos autres qui restons vieillissants. L'âge, ils y laisseront pas. Ni les années, ni les connaîtront pas. Au coucher du soleil, et puis au matin, on va s'en souvenir des autres.
Ils ne vieilliront pas comme nous qui leur avons survécu.
They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
Thank you for the reading of the Act of Remembrance. We will now have a musical intermezzo. Vocalist Kerse Jansen and Ilka Kropman, together with keyboard player Peter Rutte, will perform Empty Chairs and Empty Places, followed by Amazing Grace.
There's a grief that can't be spoken. There's a pain goes on and on. Empty chairs at empty tables. Now my friends are dead and gone. Here they talked of revolution.
and tomorrow never came. From the table in the corner, they could see a world reborn, and they rose with voices ringing. I can hear them now, the very words that they had sung. They came the last communion on the lonely barricade at dawn. Oh, my friends, forgive me that I live and you are gone. There's a grief that can't be spoken. There's a pain goes on and on. Phantom faces at the window, phantom shadows on the floor, empty chairs at empty tables, where my friends will meet no more. Oh, my friends, don't ask me what your sacrifice was for. Empty chairs at empty tables, where my friends will sing no more.
Thank you very much for this beautiful performance. I would like to invite Hudson Raté and Sarah Crevier to come forward and read out the commitment to remember in both English and French.
They were young, as we are young. They served, giving freely of themselves. To them we pledge, amid the winds of time, to carry their torch and never forget. We will remember them.
Ils étaient jeunes, jeunes comme nous. Ils ont servi.
They were young as we are young. They served, giving freely of themselves. To them we pledge, amid the winds of time, to carry the torch and never forget. We will remember them.
Thank you very much. From the All Saints High School in Canada, I would like to introduce teacher Miss Vanessa Kurtz to speak about her work with the students in regard to remembering.
A First World War poet wrote, "When you go home today, tell them of us and say, for your tomorrow, we gave our today." Those of us here today can pass along that important message. The question is, how do we ensure that the next generations learn about the sacrifice of those buried here in this cemetery and elsewhere? This is why I am so grateful that the Faces to Graves foundations exist and why their work is so important. I am a teacher at All Saints High School in Canada, Ontario, Canada, and our school is located on the unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation. Over the past 5 years, more than 300 of my students from All Saints High School has researched and written the life stories of 189 Canadian soldiers buried here to contribute to the work of Faces to Graves. Our involvement in this project profoundly impacted my students. They are not only studying Canadian history, they also are learning about what remembrance is. Remembrance is not just for the families of these soldiers. It must also teach future generations about honoring those who made the supreme sacrifice. My connection with Groesbeek Canadian War Cemetery began 10 years ago when I came here as a supervisor on our school trip and attended the 70th anniversary ceremony. During the ceremony, I noticed a veteran stand up and walk across the cemetery to a headstone. He paused and put his hand on it. I captured this incredible moving moment with my camera. After the ceremony, I learned that this veteran had not been back to Europe since the end of the war. The headstone belonged to a friend, and he regretted never having had the chance to say goodbye. That is why he stood at his friend's grave. This simple act of remembrance left a strong impression on me. Every semester, I share the story and photo with a new class of students as they begin their research for Faces to Graves. It leads to a discussion about how even after 70 years, the impact of the loss of these soldiers is still felt today. As the students learn about their assigned soldiers, they form a bond, which further strengthens their resolve to ensure their soldier is remembered. As the families of the soldiers and other organizations contribute information to inform their research, the students see firsthand the impact of the loss of each of these lives. As a result, our Faces to Graves project has enhanced remembrance at our school in various ways. Every fall, students plant tulips in the names of their soldiers. In November, for Remembrance Day in Canada, they write a short summary of each soldier's life, which is displayed in the main school entrance. Some students even volunteer to read these aloud at our Remembrance Day ceremony. This sharing is powerful, as it helps the entire student body to connect to soldiers who are not much older than them. Each year, I ask my students to reflect on their experience. Their responses show the understanding and appreciation they have for their fallen soldiers. Leo wrote that, doing the Faces to Graves project felt fulfilling. I felt part of something bigger and helped a brave soldier be remembered. Caitlin reflected that this project helped me realize that war deaths are not just numbers, but represent real lives with families and stories. Another student noted, it's a way to protect these heroes from being forgotten to time. To be one of these lucky students who was able to revive and hopefully keep the memory of one of these soldiers was a true honor and something that I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. Even more moving are the responses from the soldiers' families when they read these life stories. The great niece of Alexander Anderson wrote, I didn't even know him, and I cried today after receiving the info in this life story. Thank you for filling in the blanks. And another, as a child, I was always angry and upset that others had a father and I didn't. I'd cry and couldn't understand why. My mother would console me as best she could. I've always grabbed onto every bit of information, no matter how small. Now it feels like I've gotten to know him all over again. These reactions illustrate how profoundly this project impacts my students and the families and communities of our soldiers. It serves as a reminder of the sacrifices made by Canadian soldiers and those they left behind, and connects students to history on a personal level. This connection demonstrates how Faces to Graves embodies the spirit of anthropologist Margaret Mead's quote, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Faces to Graves has helped my students and the many people who volunteer with this organization to change the world, ensuring that the sacrifice of these soldiers are not forgotten, lest we forget.
Thank you, Ms. Kurtz, for your work and your inspiring words. Now we will continue with the formal part of this ceremony. The last post and rouse will be played by Bugler Corporal Matthew Meunier of the Canadian Armed Forces, followed by the lament, which is played by Piper Corporal Grant Hill of the Canadian Armed Forces. Dear guests, geachte aanwezigen, when able, please stand for the playing of the last post, the 2 minutes of silence, the rouse and the lament. Please be seated.
Stand up, easy. Stand easy.
Now it's time for our young scouts to come into action. They will place the last 6 photos of the Faces to Graves exhibition on the graves here at the front row. After that, they will give each veteran a Canadian flag. Nu gaan we onze jonge scouts vragen om naar voren te komen. Ze zullen de laatste 6 Faces to Graves foto's plaatsen bij de graven hier op de voorste rij. Daarna zullen zij een Canadese vlag overhandigen aan ieder van de aanwezige veteranen. Thank you very much. Very well done. Heel goed gedaan, jongens en meisjes. Now I'd like to introduce, on my left side, the Canadian Pipes and Drums Society. They traveled all the way from British Columbia in Canada to Groesbeek, and they will perform Highland Cathedral for us. Thank you, Kelowna Pipes and Drum Society, for this impressive performance. The band on my right side is the Canadian Armed Forces Band from the Royal Vendoux Regiment. They will now play for us the national anthems, O Canada and Het Wilhelmus. Dear guests, geachte aanwezigen, please stand for the playing of the national anthems. Thank you, Canadian Armed Forces Band, for this performance of our national anthems. We have almost come to an end of this ceremony, but I'd like to thank everybody who made this possible and who helped in making this ceremony and exhibition happen. Special thanks to the gardeners of the Commonwealth's War Grave Commission, who helped in every possible way. Also thanks to the hiking organization OLAT for the catering and the first aid group from Groesbeek for their assistance. Finally, many thanks for the team for Veterans Affairs for their help and support. I would like to share that we brought enough Canadian flags so that one can be placed on each grave. After this ceremony, I want to invite everybody to look for one of the representatives holding those flags. Take some of the flags which you can place on the graves. The representatives will be at the back of all the chairs after the ceremony. And when you place the flags, please respect the graves. Graag wil ik u uitleggen dat we genoeg Canadese vlaggen hebben meegebracht, zodat er op ieder graf een vlag kan worden geplaatst. Ik wil een ieder vragen om na de ceremonie naar de vrijwilligers te gaan die deze vlaggen hebben, om een aantal vlaggen te ontvangen en deze bij de graven te plaatsen. De vrijwilligers staan straks achter de stoelen. En wilt u bij het plaatsen van de vlaggen de graven respecteren. After this ceremony, also attending family members of Canadian soldiers that are buried here at Groesbeek will place photos on their relatives' graves. Dear guests, dames en heren, please stand for the departure of the Guard and the Canadian Armed Forces Band. This concludes the ceremony. On behalf of the Faces to Grace Foundation and Veterans Affairs Canada, I thank you for your attendance and please join us for refreshments in the tent next to the parking lot. Dit is het einde van de ceremonie. Namens Faces to Grace en Veterans Affairs wil ik u danken voor uw aanwezigheid en graag uitnodigen om wat te drinken in de tent naast de parkeerplaats. Thank you.
So while that marks the end of the ceremony, we're not taking our eyes off those veterans. They are the reason why we are all here. As best they can, some of them will try to go see some of the graves because this day is about them, is for them. They spent much of their time facing those graves. And I'm curious, Tim, as we talk about it, you and I were having a conversation about how remarkable it is to look at these gravestones, that they are always information. These soldiers will forevermore be information. It doesn't matter what angle you look at them at. It's always that straight line and on guard for everybody else, for the messiness of how we live and who we love and all the freedom.
These cemeteries are remarkable, and when people come here, there's something about it. It's a site of sorrow and sacrifice, but also of pride and patriotism. To think that these are Canadians who have lain here for 80 years, and they represent those 45,000 Canadians who were killed in the war. And then I sometimes reflect on the million veterans who came home and helped to build up this country. I mean, Canada, if you think of the first half of the 20th century, think of the First World War, the Depression, the Second World War, those are years of misery. But this generation and emerging from the Second World War, our country was changed. The emergence of the Social Security net, facing outward with NATO, building up the country, urbanization, the baby boom, all of that. It's not directly linked to the veterans. It is to the war effort, but it's one of the reasons why we still care. And yet it's the men and women here who embody that, isn't it?
And it's interesting. You've been talking about how ceremonies evolve over the years, but they're always rooted in the present. And you heard a little bit of that today, right?
Yeah.
That we're not just talking about something that happened 80 years ago and disappeared into the, dusty books.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been lucky to do this. I think this is 20 years now. I started in 2005, but I remember in 2007 at WWII, speakers talking about the war in Afghanistan. And then you can talk about various times, but we heard a lot today about Russia's illegal war on Ukraine. And, these events grounded in the past, and yet they represent the present. They are evergreen and living. And isn't that a view?
Like those soldiers, the young and the old, the pairing up, they all know war in a different way.
They do. And there's something about that. We've been talking about, I suppose, service personnel, understanding, able to talk about these very difficult experiences sometimes. And I think that what we're seeing here, the looks on their faces, I'm not projecting, I hope, anything there, but there's something quite meaningful here. People coming up, thanking, I think, for service. And that word thank you comes up over and over again from the Dutch and maybe from Canadians as well. I think we've heard some of that. Thank you, those who are still with us.
I find, for all of the organized events that are moving, I find it is the moments like this where someone is interacting that can stop you in your tracks, and particularly the reaction of the vets.
Yeah.
Was there a speech that you heard today that you circled, you took notes of in particular?
I'm a note taker, unfortunately.
I saw that.
Yeah. Well, Richard Romer, who's 101 years old, a decorated RCAF pilot. He said many things. This hallowed resting place, and that resonated with me. And he spoke directly to the fallen. He spoke to those young guys he knew. And there are over 100 RCAF aircrew who are buried here. More than likely, almost all of them in bomber crews that went down. He spoke directly to them. I thought that was powerful. And he said, and you and I both took note of this, I don't expect to be here again.
Yeah.
And these anniversaries tend to be on a 5-year cycle, the 75, 80, 85. I wonder where we will be in 5 years. I hope that these veterans will still be with us, but I suspect we will not have 20 veterans of the Second World War 5 years from now. And so he acknowledged something that we don't always talk about, that we're on the razor's edge here, and we will lose our veterans. And then I wonder how we will talk about the Second World War. I hope you and I are here in 10 years.
I would like to be, for sure.
But it may be the descendants. It may be the children. And it may be all Canadians. And we talked about this. There are millions of Canadians who have a blood link to the Second World War. But this should matter, and I think it does matter to everyone. And we saw that with children and some of those students as well, who are keeping alive the memory and the meaningfulness of an event like this.
One of the things we learned from D-Day is that first the veterans came back alone, and then maybe they brought a partner, and then for the next 10 years, maybe it was a child. And over the last decade or so, it has been grandchildren and nieces and nephews and their grandchildren, and there's been this exponential connection, and long may that last. We have a moment here. Chris Brown was in the crowd, and I know he has another special guest, and I think we should hear this. Chris?
Adrienne, I'm here with someone who's a very personal connection to this place, to this country. Barbara Kindersley, Barbara, this is your father's gravestone.
That's right, yes.
Tell me a story.
Well, he signed up as soon as he could in 1940, left his job and went to go with the Army, and he trained up at Camp Borden, and very quickly they were sent with the engineers, Royal Canadian Engineers, over to England for training. And then after D-Day, the engineers came in to fix the bridges, all right? He stayed with them till 1945, 31st of May.
After the war had ended?
Yes, he was still up in Zutphen, and he had one last task to do, was to dispose of a bomb that was on the tracks that was taking for the train that was taking the troops to Rotterdam to catch the ship back to Halifax. He had that one job to do. His suitcase was packed. Unfortunately, it was a booby. Came to him, killed him immediately. He had sent me a letter to say, I'm going to be home for your birthday. My birthday was in June. He didn't make it to my 9th birthday.
So many awful stories here. For you to be here today, what's the significance of that?
It's amazing that I could be here at my age, and I was determined that I was going to be here to see my father one last time.
And you've brought...
a bouquet of flowers that actually was given to me by the manager of the restaurant where we had lunch today to bring to the cemetery.
Just a stranger?
The Dutch, yes. But the Dutch are so welcoming. Every Dutch person I've ever met has been so kind. I think I should stay in Holland for the rest of my life, so I could be near my father as well.
Barbara, thank you so much for talking to us.
It was my great pleasure.
That's Barbara Kindersley, who's great. Barbara Kindersley, but now Barbara Wood, whose father is buried here. Adrienne.
Oh, Chris, that's amazing. He didn't make it home for her 9th birthday. She came to see him. I think no matter how old you are, when you talk about losing a parent, you are still a child.
Yeah, boy, that's emotional. That's powerful. That brings it home, doesn't it? And to me, we were talking about the descendants of, and that was not a young person. And so this is the children now are in their 80s or 90s. And then it's the next generation and the next. And I think we see that here. This is part of our own history, woven into our country's history, our communities, and our personal family histories as well.
All right. Thank you. Let's go have a chat with Crystal Gumansing. Crystal?
Adrienne, I have some friends that I want to introduce you to. Here we have 9-year-old Milo and 11-year-old Tara. They are, I am told the translation would be Beavers and Scouts. They are local Dutch children, and they were 2 of the children who were invited to go and chat with the veterans, to hand them flags. And Milo, I want to ask you first, because you were able to hand over a flag, what did you and your veteran talk about?
They said thank you, and I said no problem, because it's no problem to give it to them. I'm really happy that I can be here. I was really, really happy. And one even said, God bless you, so I was really happy.
Milo, thank you very much. Tara, you also handed over a flag, had a little bit of an interaction. Tell me about that.
A lot of them said thank you, and then I said no thank you, because they did the work here.
They did the work here. They helped out liberating the Netherlands. You said that you thought it was pretty cool. What was pretty cool about it?
Because you can only do it once in your life, and that's just cool to do.
There you go. Tara, Milo, thank you very much for joining us. So, Adrienne, 2 very young Dutch children talking about that interaction, being thanked and being able to thank those veterans, or as they're called here, liberators.
Oh, Crystal, thank you. And I think those 2 are cool. Let them know they are fantastic. And thanks for your coverage, Crystal. While we're talking about students, because this is what memory looks like. It looks like the next generation saying, don't worry, we've got this. Let's go back to Deanna and the students at Bloor Collegiate Institute in Toronto.
Adrienne, they've got this. There's a history club called Museo. They were watching the ceremony with you, with all the vets. Katie Whitfield is their history teacher. We come here a lot for Remembrance Day, and Joanne is one of the members of the history club. Joanne, watching the vets, watching some of them getting emotional, how did you feel?
I guess like sad, because they had to go through a bunch of things. They had to lose a bunch of like friends that they may have like made during the war, or they had before the war, and they had to lose them, and they created like a whole bunch of different like issues for them, and it created so much trauma surrounding the entire thing. I guess it's just sad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, relating to that sadness all those years later. Miss Whitfield, you've been running this club for quite a few years. How do you connect the students? We don't have a lot of time, but how do you connect the students to those events?
I think it's really important for students to have an opportunity to take the moment out of their busy schooling experiences to learn about the stories of the soldiers from our own school community. There were 4 of them that died in the liberation of the Netherlands that attended Bloor Collegiate Institute, and on the centennial year of our school, they are very close to our memory today and over the next year as well.
Thank you both so much, and everyone here at the History Club. Adrienne, they've done beautiful research projects on young soldiers who perished in a war, who were just like them and attended this very school. And so they're remembering and commemorating the sacrifice, even though they're not in the Netherlands. Adrienne.
Deanna, thank you. Thank you to them. And here's to great teachers all over the world who start projects like this and nurture them. It's fantastic, and it means a lot to people like that. That's Ernie Wiles going to see possibly one of his friends, something he wanted to do. This is sort of marking the end of this day's ceremony, but this is not at all the end of the acknowledgements and commemorations. This will be a whole weekend of events, including some parades where it gets fun. You know, it gets fun. The thank yous get raucous. There is a lot of love. Keep an eye on what's happening in the Netherlands over the next few days. You're going to see some beautiful images. And I want to thank everybody for spending time with us. For the rest of my life, I will not ever forget that flight with those vets and hanging next to George Marash. And I'm wondering what will stick with you, Tim.
What will stick with me? Well, those groups of students saying the History Club, and that warms my heart a bit, but this is our history. I mean, it's our job to talk about it, to share it, to teach it. Don't expect the Americans or the British or the French to do our history, right? It's up to us. And we have to fight against apathy, and we have to fight and make the effort. And I think we've done that today, and I hope it doesn't embarrass you, but I want to thank you for keeping this going. This is a complex event. This matters. And if I had a final thought, I would say that behind us, that is the cost of freedom.
Yeah.
That is the cost of freedom. The Dutch have never forgotten. They have not forgotten their liberators.
And we cannot.
And we can't either.
All right, Tim Cook, thank you as always. And thanks to all of you so much for joining us for these important moments out of Groesbeek Canadian War Cemetery here in the Netherlands. If you've never been, please come and please join us again here tonight on the National for more from this very special place. If you're watching us on CBC News Network, Chief Political Correspondent Rosemary Barton and the host of Power and Politics, David Cochrane, are up next with special coverage of Prime Minister Mark Carney's first press conference after his election win. I'm Adrienne Arsenault with Tim Cook for all the crew here in the Netherlands and back home in Toronto. Take care.